Welcome back, beautiful souls, to Jotindi, Journey to the Inner Divine. I am so grateful that you're here with me today because we're diving into a topic that has truly transformed my own life and healing journey: the universal laws. When I first began exploring these teachings, I felt like I'd finally been given a map for the soul. Up until then, so much of my life felt random, like things were just happening to me. And when you've gone through trauma, heartbreak, or a season of deep struggle, that sense of randomness can feel very heavy. And it can make you wonder, why me? Why is this happening? Is there even any meaning behind all this? Discovering the universal laws gave me a different perspective. They showed me that life isn't random at all, that there are deeper principles, like invisible threads, woven through everything we experience. And when I began to understand those principles, I could start working with them instead of feeling like I was being swept away by them. So stay tuned because this episode is going to be so amazing. You're going to learn everything you need to know to start using these universal laws in your own life and finally find your purpose. Welcome to Jotindi, Journey to the Inner Divine, a sacred space for healing energy, emotional release, and soulful transformation. If you're ready to live with joy, ease, and purpose, you're in the right place. Welcome back, everyone. Today we are talking about universal law. If you've ever read The Secret or learned about the law of attraction, you might have found yourself wondering, but what about when these things don't work out, or when life feels more like a struggle than a flow? And that was me. I wanted to believe in manifestation, but I needed a deeper framework. And one of the books that helped me the most on this path was the Kybalion. The Kybalion really filled in a lot of those gaps for me. And it helped me to see that manifestation isn't just about positive thinking. It's about aligning with a whole system of natural and spiritual laws that govern our reality. And one of the biggest lessons for me was about balance. Many of these laws point back to balance between light and dark, between giving and receiving, expansion and contraction. And at first, I used to think that balance was like walking on a tightrope where one wrong step meant failure. But over time, I began to see it more like a pendulum. Life naturally swings back and forth, and those swings are part of the process. So instead of fearing them, I could begin to trust them. And that perspective brought me so much peace with my circumstances, especially in times of transition or challenge. So today, I want to introduce you to these universal laws, and together we'll explore why they matter and how you can use them to create shifts in your own life. My intention is not to overwhelm you with abstract philosophy, but to show you how these ancient principles can be incredibly practical in your everyday, day to day life, whether you're navigating healing or seeking clarity or learning to manifest your deepest desires. Because when you understand the universal laws, you begin to realize you're not powerless and you're not alone. You're a co creator with the universe. And the more you align with these laws, the more your life begins to flow. Not perfectly, but with purpose and rhythm and with a sense of divine support. So let's begin with the basics. What exactly are the universal laws? I like to think of them as the underlying principles of creation, timeless truths that describe how energy, consciousness, and the universe itself actually works. Just like gravity, the laws of physics, these spiritual laws are always operating, whether you're aware of them or not. You don't have to believe in gravity to keep your feet on the ground. And in the same way, you don't have to believe in the universal laws for them to be shaping your everyday life. These teachings are ancient teachings. They show up in many wisdom of traditions across time, but one of the most well-known ones is a book called the Kybalion. It was written over a century ago, rooted in Hermetic philosophy from thousands of years back. The Kybalion outlines 7 key principles that help explain how the universe functions, both on a physical and spiritual level. But beyond Hermeticism, you'll find echoes of these laws in all kinds of spiritual texts and practices. A Course in Miracles speaks of them in the language of miracles and forgiveness. The Secret brought the law of attraction into the mainstream, and even the Bible and many Eastern traditions hold reflections of these truths, spoken in different metaphors. So while the wording may change, the essence remains the same. there is order, structure, and divine intelligence woven into the fabric of life. And why does this matter? Because when we understand these laws, we can begin to work with them instead of against them. Think about it this way. Imagine someone who doesn't know anything about gravity trying to learn how to fly a kite. They might get frustrated, thinking that the wind is against them or that the string is cursed. But once they understand gravity and aerodynamics and how the elements interact, suddenly it all makes sense. And that same wind that once felt like an obstacle now becomes an ally. And that's what the universal laws can do for us. They explain the why behind so much of what we experience, why certain patterns repeat in our lives, why manifestation sometimes works and sometimes it falls flat, and why healing can come in cycles, why energy attracts energy. And once we understand the why, we can begin to make conscious choices that align us with these principles. And it's important to note the universal laws are not about punishment or reward. They're not rules that are set up to test us. They're simply descriptions of how things are. Just like a river has a current, these laws are the currents of life. If you try to swim against the current, it feels exhausting. But if you learn to flow with it, you'll find yourself moving forward with far less struggle. And for me, that shift in perspective was life-changing. Instead of feeling like life was happening to me, I began to see that life was happening through me and that I had the power to choose how I showed up in response. Now, there are many universal laws. Depending on the teacher or the tradition, you may hear about 7 of them, or 12, or even more. But the key is not the number, it's the essence. Each one offers a lens, a way of understanding ourselves and the world around us more deeply. And that's what we're going to explore in this episode. I'll walk you through some of the most powerful laws, like the law of mentalism, the law of vibration, the law of correspondence, and the law of attraction. We'll look at what they mean, how they show up in your everyday life, and most importantly, how you can begin to apply them to create real shifts in your healing, in your relationships, and in your sense of purpose. Because here's the truth. Once you understand and begin to align with these laws, your life will feel less like a struggle and more like a dance. And not a perfect dance, but one where you can begin to feel the rhythm and trust the flow and know that you're being guided by something greater than yourself. So now that we've laid the foundation, let's begin exploring some of these universal laws together. And I want you to think of this as like an introduction, walking through a garden where you pause at different flowers, noticing their beauty and their essence. You don't need to memorize every detail. Just allow yourself to notice which ones speak to you, which ones light you up inside, because those are the ones that may be most relevant for where you are at on your journey right now. The first law I want to share is the law of mentalism. The Kybalion puts it simply, all is mind. What that means is that everything we experience in reality begins in thought. The universe itself is mental in nature, created and sustained by consciousness. Think about how your own inner dialogue shapes your outer experience. If you're waking up and telling yourself, today's going to be awful, I'm exhausted, I can't handle this, you've already set yourself up to look through a lens in which you'll filter everything that happens. But if you wake up and you choose, even gently, to say, I'm open to peace today, your day will unfold differently. This law is empowering because it reminds us that we are not victims of our circumstance. We are participants in creation. Our thoughts plant seeds that grow into the experience of our lives. And yes, this can feel daunting because who among us has perfectly positive thoughts all the time? But the gift here isn't perfection, it's awareness. The moment you notice your mind spiraling, you've already begun to shift. That awareness is like sunlight breaking through the clouds. Now, the second law I want to go over is the law of vibration. And this one has become a lot more popular in recent years, and for good reason. It states that everything is energy. Everything vibrates at a certain frequency. From the chair you're sitting on to the emotions you feel, everything carries a vibrational signature. Emotions like joy, love, and gratitude carry a higher vibration. Fear, anger, and despair carry a lower vibration. Neither is bad, both are part of the human experience. But when we want to shift our lives, raising our vibration makes all the difference. Think of it like tuning into a radio. If you're tuned into a station that only plays static, you're not going to hear the music that you want to hear. But when you adjust the frequency, suddenly the music comes through clearly. This is why practices like gratitude, movement, meditation, and sound healing are so powerful because they literally shift your vibration. And when your vibration changes, the experiences you attract and the way that you perceive life begins to shift too. Next, we have the law of correspondence. And you may have heard the phrase, as within, so without, as above, so below. And that is this law in action. It means that the outer world is always reflecting the inner world. Our circumstances mirror what's happening within us, our beliefs, our unresolved emotions, our sense of worth. Now, this doesn't mean that if something painful happens that you've manifested it or that it's your fault. Please hear me on that. Life is complex. We live in a collective reality with many moving parts. But what this law does remind us is that when we want to shift what's happening on the outside, the most powerful place to begin is on the inside. If your relationships keep feeling chaotic, maybe it's pointing to a place inside where you crave harmony and healing. If your outer world feels scarce, maybe it's an invitation to explore the stories that you hold on to about abundance and worthiness. The law of correspondence encourages us to see life as a mirror, one that can guide us toward deeper healing and alignment. Another key law is the law of cause and effect. Simply put, every action has a reaction. Every choice carries consequences, seen and unseen. And this isn't about punishment. It's simply the natural way of unfolding energy. When you plant an apple seed, you don't grow an orange tree, you grow apples. The seeds that you sow, your thoughts, your words, your actions, they shape the harvest that you will eventually gather. This law is empowering because it shows us that we can choose differently. If the seeds we've planted in the past grew into pain or struggle, we can begin today to plant the seeds of love and peace and intention. And over time, those new seeds will grow into a different experience. It also teaches us patience. Seeds don't become fruit overnight. Sometimes when we're doing the inner work, it feels like nothing is happening. But under the surface, the roots are growing. Trusting the process is part of aligning with this law. And now, time for the probably most famous one, the law of attraction. This one says, like attracts like. The energy that you emit is the energy that you draw back. And this law became mainstream through The Secret, which was a book and later a movie. And while it is powerful, many people misunderstand it. It's not just about wishing for something and then waiting for it to arrive. It's about becoming an energetic match for what you desire, aligning your thoughts, your emotions, and your actions with it. If you want more love in your life, you begin by cultivating love within yourself. If you want abundance, you begin by stepping into gratitude and releasing scarcity. The vibration that you hold acts like a magnet. But here's where the deeper teachings matter. The law of attraction doesn't operate in isolation. It's supported by the other laws, like cause and effect, and vibration and correspondence. That's why sometimes people try to manifest something and get frustrated when it doesn't show up. It's not that the law failed. It's that alignment across the other laws hasn't happened yet. And when you understand this, you stop seeing manifestation as a quick trick and start honoring it as a deeper practice of alignment. And finally, let's talk about the law of rhythm. This law says that everything in life moves in cycles and patterns, like tides, the seasons, the rise and fall of your breath. Nothing is stagnant. Everything flows in and out. And for me, this law has been such a comfort because believing in healing, in growth, and even in manifestation, things don't happen in a straight line. There are seasons of expansion and seasons of rest, moments of clarity and moments of uncertainty. When I used to think of balance as walking a tightrope, I felt constant pressure to stay on track. But once I began to see balance as a pendulum, as a rhythm, I could breathe easier. The swings back and forth weren't signs of failure, they were signs of life. And this law invites us to trust the timing of our journey, to honor the seasons of slowing down just as much as the seasons of moving forward, to know that we are in a valley, a peak will come again. And if we're on a peak, we can enjoy it without fear because the cycles of life are natural and divine. Now, those are just a handful of the universal laws. But even beginning with these, mentalism, vibration, correspondence, cause and effect, attraction, and rhythm, they can completely shift how you see yourself and your life. They give us a framework, a way of understanding the unseen forces at work, and a way of aligning with them so that it feels like less of a struggle and more of a sacred dance. So now that we've touched on some of the universal laws, let's pause and talk about why they actually matter. Because it's one thing to know about them in theory, but it's another thing entirely to understand how they can change the way you live and experience your life. For me, learning about these laws was like having a veil lifted. Before, when something painful happened, I would spiral into questions like, why me? Why is life so unfair? And why can't I ever just catch a break? And honestly, that way of thinking left me feeling completely powerless. Like I was just being tossed around by the forces of life that were completely out of my control. But when I began to understand these universal laws, everything shifted. I realized that life wasn't random at all. There was a meaning woven into it, even when it didn't feel that way on the surface. And more importantly, I realized I had a choice. I couldn't always control what happened, but I could always choose how I aligned myself in response. And that one shift from victimhood to co-creator was absolutely life-changing. The universal laws matter because they empower us to see ourselves differently. They remind us that we're not just here to endure life, we're here to participate in it. We are creators. We are energy in motion. And the universe isn't working against us, it's working with us, always reflecting back what we put out. Another reason that these laws matter is that they bring us peace when life feels chaotic. Think about the law of rhythm, for example. When you're in a season of struggle, it's so easy to believe that that's all there is. But when you understand rhythm, you can remind yourself this is just a season. The pendulum will swing again. The tide will turn. That awareness doesn't take the pain away, but it does soften it. It gives you hope. It tells you you will rise again, and this too shall pass. For me, this understanding was powerful during times of healing. When I was working through trauma and navigating the aftermath of really difficult experiences, I often felt like I was failing if I wasn't constantly better. But through the lens of universal law, I began to see that healing isn't linear, it's rhythmic. There are ups and downs, and both are part of the healing process. And that realization gave me permission to stop being so hard on myself and to trust the bigger picture and to lean in to all the ups and downs. And these laws also bring clarity. Have you ever noticed a pattern that keeps repeating in your life, whether it's in relationships, work, or even how you talk to yourself? The law of correspondence explains why. What's within us gets reflected around us. Once I began to see my outer world as a mirror, I could use it as guidance. Instead of asking, why does this keep happening to me? I could ask, what is this showing me about what's going on inside? And that shift is incredibly empowering because it takes something that felt like a curse and transforms it into a roadmap for healing. And then, of course, there is the matter of manifestation. Universal law shows us that manifestation isn't magic, it's alignment. When you understand how the law of mentalism, the law of vibration, cause and effect, they all work together, you begin to see that you are constantly shaping your reality. Every thought, every choice, every emotion contributes to the energy that you carry. And that energy is magnetic. But here's the beauty of the whole thing. You don't have to be perfect. You don't have to never feel fear or never make mistakes because the universe isn't keeping score. It's simply reflecting your energy. which means that every moment is another chance to realign. Every breath is an invitation to begin again. So, why do the universal laws matter? Because they bring meaning where there was once confusion. They bring empowerment where there was once helplessness. They bring hope where there was once despair. And most of all, they remind us that we are not separate from the universe. We are part of it. We are woven into its fabric. And its laws are not here to limit us, but to guide us into deeper harmony with who we truly are. Now that we've explored the universal laws and why they matter, let's talk about how to actually apply them. Because the real magic isn't just knowing the laws, it's living them, breathing them, and gently weaving them into the fabric of your everyday life. The beautiful thing is, you don't have to master them all at once. Even choosing one law to focus on can create a powerful shift. So let's walk through a few of these laws that we've already talked about, and I'll share some simple and practical ways that you can begin working with them. First, the law of mentalism. Since everything begins with thought, one of the most powerful ways to apply this law is through awareness of your inner dialogue. A simple practice is journaling. Every evening, just spend a few minutes writing down the dominant thoughts that you carried that day. And notice, are they thoughts of fear or doubt or limitation? Or are they thoughts of possibility, hope, and trust? We're not looking for judgment here, just awareness. From there, you can gently introduce affirmations or mantras that shift your inner lens. For example, if you often think things like, I'm not good enough, you might begin to reframe that with, I'm learning, I am growing, and I am worthy of love and success. Over time, these new thoughts create new patterns in your life. Next is the law of vibration. Everything is energy. To work with the law of vibration, it's all about tuning your energy and raising your frequency. You can do this in so many ways. You can do it through movement like dance or yoga, or even just going for a short walk in nature. You can use sound healing, like listening to calming frequencies, a crystal bowl sound bath, or just your favorite uplifting songs. Or you can do this through gratitude, writing down 3 things that you're grateful for and why you're grateful for them. This shifts your vibration instantly. And one of my favorite practices is to pause during the day and ask myself, what am I vibrating right now? Am I radiating stress and tension, or am I holding peace and openness? That awareness alone can shift the energy that I'm carrying. Now, the law of correspondence, as within, so without. Applying this law means paying attention to the reflections in your life. When something outside feels chaotic, ask yourself, what might this be showing me about what's going on inside me? A practice for this is meditation or a quiet reflective moment. Sit with whatever situation feels difficult, and instead of trying to fix it on the outside, just turn inward and ask, what in me is ready to be healed? What belief or emotion is being mirrored back to me? And this isn't about blame, it's about guidance. Life is always giving us clues about where our inner work lies. The law of cause and effect. Here, the application is about conscious choice. Every thought, every word, every action plants a seed. A practical tool is the pause practice. Before reacting in a heated moment, take a pause. Take one deep breath. Ask yourself, what kind of seed am I planting with what I'm about to say or do? And that one momentary pause can completely change the effect that you create. On a larger scale, this law reminds us to live with intention, to create daily rituals that align with the kind of life you want to experience. Whether it's a morning meditation or a gratitude practice, or simply choosing kindness in small moments, let those seeds grow. And of course, we have the law of attraction. This law is all about alignment, becoming a vibrational match for what you desire. Visualization is a powerful tool here. Each day, take a few moments to imagine yourself already living in the reality you want. Feel it in your body. What does it feel like to be abundant, loved, at peace? The key is not just thinking about this, but embodying the feeling of it. I had a very amazing moment doing this exact thing the other day. I had an EEG where they measure your thoughts, your energy that your brain is putting out. I spent the first half of the EEG thinking normal thoughts. And I spent the second half doing this exact powerful visualization tool. And when the results from the test came back, you could see the exact moment where I shifted my thoughts. My thoughts went from a chaotic mess to a perfectly aligned vibration. It was really beautiful to see. And if you want to see it too, I'll post it up on my Instagram so you can check it out there. So then once you've done this, you're going to want to pair this with action. So if you're manifesting love, take actions that nurture love in yourself. Take care, forgiveness, set boundaries. If you're manifesting abundance, take aligned steps towards those opportunities, even small ones. The universe meets you where you are. And the law of rhythm. To live in harmony with rhythm, begin noticing and honoring your own cycles. This might look like allowing yourself rest when your body is calling for it, instead of pushing through, or celebrating a season of growth without fearing when the energy is going to naturally slow down. One practice is tracking your personal rhythms, your energy, your emotions, or your creativity across days or weeks. Over time, you'll begin to notice patterns, just like the moon cycles or the seasons of the earth. And when you honor those rhythms instead of resisting them, life feels more fluid and less like a battle. And here's the most important thing that I want you to remember. You don't have to do all of this or all of this perfectly. These laws aren't here to punish you if you mess up. They're here to guide you, to invite you into greater alignment, and to remind you that you always have the power to shift. So start small. Choose one law that spoke to you today. Try one practice that feels doable and see how it shifts your energy or your perspective. Little by little, these small alignments add up to powerful transformation. Because at the end of the day, living in harmony with universal law isn't about being spiritual enough or checking off a to-do list. It's about learning how to flow with the current of life and trusting that the universe is supporting you and remembering that you are a co-creator in this dance of existence. And as we start to wrap up today's conversation, I want to bring us back to something really important. The universal laws are not just ideas floating out there in some mystical realm. They're living truths. They're happening all the time, whether we notice them or not. And when you start to notice them, when you start to align with them, life shifts in profound ways. It doesn't mean that everything suddenly becomes perfect or that you're never going to face challenges again. Remember, the law of rhythm reminds us that life moves in cycles. There are seasons for growth and seasons for rest, seasons for abundance and seasons for release. But when you know that, you can meet those seasons with greater trust instead of fear. The universal laws are really an invitation. They're inviting you to step into your role as a conscious co-creator with the universe, to realize that you're not just at the mercy of what happens. You have power, you have choice, and you have the ability to align yourself with deeper currents of life. And maybe that's the greatest gift of all, the peace that comes when you understand that nothing is random, that there's meaning woven into everything. And even the most difficult experiences can serve your growth and your healing and your ultimate expansion. So as you move through the days ahead, I invite you, notice where these laws are showing up in your life. Notice the law of polarity. Notice the law of vibration. Notice the law of cause and effect. And most importantly, notice how empowered you feel when you begin to work with these laws instead of against them. If you're ready to take this exploration even deeper, I have created a free resource for you. It's called the Spiritual Self-Care Menu. It's a playful guide, like a restaurant menu, and it gives you practices that you can use to realign your energy, ground yourself, and connect more deeply with the universal laws in your daily life. You can download it through the link in the show notes or at mariaaurora.com/freebie/menu. I promise it's a beautiful place to begin putting these principles into practice. And remember, you don't have to master all of this at once. Just start small. Choose one law that resonated with you today and play with it. See how it shows up in your life. See if it shifts your perspective or guides your actions. And I'll leave you with this thought. You're not separate from the universe. You are the universe. You are the universe expressing itself in human form. The laws that govern the stars and the galaxies also live within you. And when you awaken to that truth, your whole life becomes a sacred dance of alignment, growth, and creation. So thank you for spending this time with me today. If this episode touched you, I'd love for you to share it with a friend who might need this message. And if you feel called, leave a review. It really helps more beautiful souls like you find this space. Until next time, remember this: you're guided, you are supported, and there is no path to happiness. Happiness is the path.